Ohio State, Tennessee on Saturday in the shoe for the first ever home college football playoff game. First game in December that Ohio Stadium has ever seen. I'm Steven, that's Andrew, and that's Stefan. We talked with Ohio State's defensive players on Tuesday ahead of the game. That's Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, and we also talked with safeties Lathan Ransom, Caleb Downs, and linebackers Cody Simon and Sonny Styles. And Caleb Downs has played this team before, guys, and so he had maybe an interesting viewpoint that the rest of these guys don't have. And I think the thing that stood out for me was how he decided. He said that it's because they play so wide, there's almost two different games going on when you play against Tennessee, which brings up the question. Stefan, we'll start with you. What's the most important position group for Ohio State on Saturday defensively?
I think it's the linebackers for a number of reasons. I think it starts up front. This Tennessee team, you talked about it, the success that they have running the ball. They're, Heupel's an air raid guy, but this offense is run the ball as well as anyone in the country this year. I think it's going to be very important because Sonny Styles alluded to it. Not only do you have to get lined up properly when you're playing a team with this tempo, not only do you need to know your assignment, but these linebackers, they got to make sure they get the right gap, right? Like this play call's got to be coming in quick, getting set quick, and making sure you're in the right gap and you've kind of processed what your job is on any given play at a rapid pace of speed. So it's going to be really important, I think, for Sonny Styles and Cody Simon to help slow down this run game. Obviously, they're going to play a part in coverage as well, right? They're just going to have to be maybe the most versatile players on the field. And as you probably listen to more on Buckeye Talk, if you tune in after this video, Steven's going to talk a lot about the jack. CJ Hicks maybe factors into this as well. Maybe I know, Andrew, you might talk about the defensive lineman. Maybe I'll steal Mitchell Melton for this one just in case he maybe plays a bit of that jack role. Whoever it is, if it's a useful role, I kind of lump them in a bit with the linebackers, kind of like a hybrid linebacker role. So if it's CJ, if it's Mitchell Melton, I think they'll also play an important role if that's the way Jim Knowles kind of decides to attack this game. So the linebackers are going to be asked to do a whole lot. But I think it starts with them slowing down the running game and trying to throw Tennessee's offense off a bit.
Multiple guys, I think both Cody Simon and Sonny Styles, described Dylan Sampson, who led the SEC in carries, rushing yards, and touchdowns this year. I think he's the SEC Player of the Year, as a patient runner, but then he can also be explosive when he finds the hole he's supposed to hit. Good pick. Andrew, what group you going with?
Defensive line, which the good news is I can also take some of the players that might play that jack position. I might also be able to take Mitchell Melton and CJ Hicks because guess what? They're playing at the edge. I think that when you talk about the defensive line this game, you're right, Stefan. I think the linebackers may have a little bit more importance here just because of the way that Tennessee wants to attack you, but the defensive line is right there because Tennessee, this is not, we've said this before, this is not your Josh Heupel, old school air raid. They're going to throw it 80 times a game, and, it's just Jalen Hyatt running 4 verts the whole time. Like, that's not this Tennessee team. So, if you're surprised by that, you shouldn't be going into the game. Ohio State needs to stop the run against Tennessee because that's how things start to snowball, right? And that comes down to the defensive line because we just saw Ohio State not stop a Michigan running attack in the fourth quarter where Michigan started to control the clock. They started to run the ball a little bit. I mean, I think back to that play that they will just kind of stay, and I think a lot of Ohio State's fans' minds, that 3rd and 7 play where the running back was stopped in the backfield by 3 different players and he broke it. Like those plays can't happen because that's what Tennessee wants to do because Tennessee, unlike Michigan, actually is a threat to throw the football. And I know Michigan beat Ohio State, and that's maybe a little bit why this offense should, give Ohio State fans a little bit of nerves going into this game because I don't think Tennessee is good enough offensively in terms of passing the football to beat you if they're averaging 2-3 yards a carry. I don't think they can. They start getting 4 or 5 yards a carry, they start moving the ball a little bit, then play action matters a little bit more. You have to respect that. I think you have to respect a little bit more of the run game. You have to respect a little bit more in terms of the amount of bodies you're allocating to the box. Like it really can start to snowball from the run game. So I think if Ohio State stops the Tennessee rushing attack, I think they're going to be okay. I think that is where Ohio State can get into trouble. If Tennessee starts ripping off some runs here, they're able to move the ball, that up-tempo offense gets clicking, it gets on a roll, and it's really, really hard to stop an offense like that once they get moving. So if Ohio State stops the run, that is where I think this game is going to be one for Ohio State's defense.
I think it's interesting to watch a team who plays high tempo like that but also runs the ball because that's a lot of snaps for both sides, offensive line and defensive line. But when they're just running at you. And you look up and it's, man, they've run 50 run plays. And they've run them all in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. What are we doing here, man? It's just going to be interesting. We've all been watching Tennessee for the past couple of weeks here, but it's going to be interesting to see it actually live and in person. I'm glad you took the defensive linemen, and I'm glad you took the linebackers, because I'm going to take the entire secondary, and I'm going to split them up, though, because of what Caleb Downs said and how it's essentially two different games going on. There's the games that's going on at the wide splits with the cornerbacks, and then there's the game that the safeties have to play, which sometimes can be either or, just like with the linebackers. Dylan Sampson's going to break some runs. Nico Iamaleava is going to get loose outside the pocket and break some runs because they are a good football team. So it's going to happen at some point. Things are going to break down where Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau are going to have a good rush. Maybe they don't get home because they're playing a pretty decent quarterback and he makes something happen with his legs. These things are going to happen. Please don't freak out Ohio State when it happens, because that's just how football is. Caleb Downs all year has been, this could have been a 60-yard touchdown, but it's a 16-yard gain. Do more of that. Lathan Ransom has somehow mastered the ability to punch the ball out. You're going to need that in a game like this. But from a cornerback perspective, I have two things. One, keep your hands to yourself. Two, get lined up. Again, I said it before. I want to go rewatch the Oregon game now and see how much of Denzel Burke was. He was just getting beat by a better player versus he was not ready to play football because he wasn't lined up yet and the receiver was, because Oregon was going tempo. Because that's a different conversation than, oh, Denzel Burke just wasn't playing well. That's on coaching. And that's where Jim Knowles and Ryan Day and the rest of the defensive coaching staff had to spend 2 weeks having heart-to-heart conversations about how they were going to change their defense. And I'm starting to lean towards it being more of the latter than the former, because Denzel Burke hasn't been that bad since then. Now, I'll go rewatch it and see. But if they're getting – the reason why that's going to be important is, yeah, they're going to run the ball a lot. But it's also going to be a lot of RPOs and play action opportunities to push the ball down the field. Tennessee has a player. His name is Dante Thornton-Thompson. I can't remember his last name right now, but he's averaging 25 yards per catch. So that's not just we're going to run the ball. This is not Wisconsin or Iowa. They're going to run the ball, play fast, get you gassed, get you all scrambled all over the place, and then when you're not lined up, pull it, throw it. And that's an explosive play. That's what can't happen. If they're just going to run the ball and get 2, 3, 4, 5 yards, because to your point, they're stopping the run, that's fine. It becomes a problem if they're running the ball and then you're not getting lined up, and then they're getting explosive passing touchdowns because your cornerbacks are not doing their job. Because, again, they are playing a different game than everybody else. Caleb Downs just told us that. He's played against these guys before. The DBs are playing a different game than everybody else. Yes, the front seven have to win their game, but the corners have to win their game too, because you cannot allow a young quarterback playing in the most hostile environment he will have played in his young career get comfortable and see a couple of those shots go in, because then there's comfort there. He is still talented, and if he sees a couple of shots go in, he's going to make more shots, and then that's going to be more problems for an offense who's already still trying to figure out its offensive line.
Well, and it's not just even getting lined up, right? It's not the physical part of it. I think it's also the mental part of it, because you could be lined up. You know, you can be scored away. You can have the call. You can be lined up. You can know exactly what your assignment is. But if you are just kind of lulled to sleep by a Tennessee running attack that, you know, they run it 4 out of 5 plays, and then the one play that they throw it, you know, it's a rollout from Nico Iamaleava where he rolls out and he hits his tight end in the flat and they gain 6 yards. Like, you know, it can get boring if you're a corner, right? If you're out on an island outside the numbers and you're just watching the play go inside, you can't get lulled to sleep by that, because that's when they get you. That's when they do it. So, it's a big challenge physically for them about getting lined up and being in the right positions, but it's also mentally. You have to be ready for a deep shot every single play mentally, because if you're not, that is when Tennessee's offense really gets clicking. So it's not just the run game and everything like that. It's what they can do on top of it. It's how they build off of it. I think that's probably the phrase of how Tennessee runs their offense. It's not just, you know, hey, they do this really well. It's a building block thing. Hey, they run the ball really well, and the tempo allows them to run the ball even better, and then that allows them to throw the ball, and that allows them to like, it just builds and it rolls downhill. And Ohio State's corners and their safeties have to be checked in mentally, because if not, they'll get burned over the top.
This is a do-your-job game.
Yeah.
Sonny Styles was talking about we don't have time for you to not know what you're doing. You need to know what you're doing. I think Cody Simon used the word urgency. You have to play with urgency. This is a do-your-job game for the defense if I've ever seen a do-your-job game for the defense. And I know it sounds like we're talking about this as if we don't think that the defense is the better unit between the two. We're just breaking down what Tennessee's going to try to do on Saturday. So get the text, 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that, and go listen to Buckeye Talk because we're continuing this conversation there wherever you find podcasts. Andrew, Stefan, Steven will be in Ohio Stadium on Saturday at 8:10. See you there.